formations near your position. If you can make it over here, I've got a mission for you.
Hey everybody, today we're looking at Zombie Army Trilogy on the channel. More specifically, we're looking at Chapter 3 of this game, because the first two chapters are actually remastered versions of games that have been previously released. Namely, the Nazi Zombie Army and Nazi Zombie Army 2 games. Now, all of these games are based on various versions of the Sniper Elite engine, but set in a sort of horror-esque, survival-esque alternate World War II, where the Nazis, in addition to all the other horrible stuff they did, decided to make a army of zombie soldiers to fight on their behalf. So basically, as you might imagine, the premise of this game is to go around shooting zombies with your sniper rifle and a variety of other weapons and gadgets that are available to you. Now, I've been a bit reluctant to cover this game on the channel, mostly because of the fact that I've already played the Nazi Zombie Army games, both of them which I thought were quite good, and actually had a lot of good things to say about those games back when I was doing the Safe Zone show here on YouTube. But I was a little bit disappointed in the way this game was sold and packaged, because if you had played the previous two chapters in the game, they were basically trying to sell you this third game at or near full price. I think there was something like a 15 or 20% loyalty discount when the game first came out for owners of the previous two games. But honestly, at the price they were selling this thing at, it just didn't feel apropos or legit to me as an owner of the previous two games to jump in on something like this. Now, thankfully, Steam sales make these sorts of purchases a lot more viable. And actually, right now on Steam, this game is being sold at 70% off, which makes it a pretty great value for people who haven't played the first two games, and a pretty reasonable value for people who have played those first two and just want to see how things wrap up in this third chapter. But as you can see, there's a few new mechanics sprinkled in here throughout this third chapter of the game, some of which involve talking to NPCs and getting more quests, for lack of a better term. I'm not sure how that stuff is actually going to play out in terms of gameplay, but at least they're trying to build up a little bit of flavor in the environment and a little bit of stuff for you to do and interact with beyond just running around and shooting things. So I certainly appreciate that sort of thing, and feel like it maybe helps justify picking this game up for people who already got their money's worth and time's worth out of the first two. The other thing I'll say is that I feel as though the upgrade to the Sniper Elite 3 engine, which was used for this game and consequently the remastering of the first two chapters, has helped in certain ways and kind of hurt the game in other ways. There's something about the gunplay in this game that I feel is just not quite as satisfying or as deliberate or accurate, ironically, as it was in the Nazi Zombie Army games. And I can't quite put my finger on it, except to say that I feel as though the aiming just feels a little off in certain cases, or the hit detection just feels a little off in certain cases. It's nothing that is going to really ruin the gameplay experience for the most part, and it's even something that I've had difficulty reproducing when I try to, say, run through the same section of the game and take the same shot from the same position at the same enemy. It seems as though maybe you're just off that little bit and it's just enough to throw things off on certain occasions. But I'd say for the most part, the gunplay in this game still feels 90% there. And certainly good enough and satisfying enough that it shouldn't get in the way of the overall experience for most players. It's just, as somebody who spent a lot of time with the previous games, I do feel like there is a slight difference in this game that is noteworthy enough to mention. Beyond that, This is just a good old-fashioned romp through some pretty beautiful levels with some pretty well-designed guns and gameplay mechanics and little mechanical wrinkles that make the whole experience fairly interesting, especially if you haven't been through any of this content before. The other thing I will say is I feel as though this is about as far as this concept can really be taken in its current form without some kind of major sea change in the way these games are done or presented. I don't know that there needs to be another zombie army or Nazi zombie army game following this one. I think this is a nice closer to the series and it gives it a nice sense of completion and finality that I think is a good thing. Wouldn't necessarily be opposed to Rebellion doing another game like this at some point in the future, but I feel like they really need to, at this point, take a step back and maybe think about a redesign for this whole concept and how they could really take it in a completely different direction as opposed to just continuing what they've already done in these first few games.
We were hit hard last night. We lost.
But having said all of that, this is still a great cooperative experience. So if you are looking to run amok in a third-person shooter experience with some friends, you can do a lot worse than this game, and I would definitely recommend it strictly on the strength of its co-op for anybody who's interested in that sort of thing. But I think that's pretty much going to wrap it up for me for this video. I'm going to just show you guys a little bit more of this first standoff that I get into and let you guys decide based on this footage whether or not this is something you'd actually be interested in playing for yourselves. I'm definitely still a fan of this series and this game in particular, although I will say I would highly recommend picking it up on sale as it is right now, as opposed to paying the full price for it. I think it's a much better value at a discounted price. But other than that, hope you guys have enjoyed this video. If you did, be sure to hit that like button. If you want to see more from me in the future, be sure to hit subscribe, and I will see you next time.
Incoming